Hello and welcome to Tunze Tech Tips. Today's topic will be the Aquawind. So this product is more or less sealed, so there isn't a lot to service or repair. The main technical issues will be installation related, so I just want to explain how the product works, how it should be mounted, and what are correct applications for it. To give you a bit of history on the Aquawind, I think it was around 2006, we started with a cooling fan, and that fan was, actually it might have been even further back than that, but we started with a cooling fan that we'd repurposed a laptop cooling fan. It was for gaming PCs, and it was meant to connect to a USB connection on a computer. The computer would power it. We modified that fan with some clamps and a USB power supply. It became a big hit. But from that, we learned several things. That it was fairly common that the metal parts of that fan would corrode, making it unsightly. The other issue was that a lot of times fans are used to cool nano aquariums, so spilled water from lifting up the collection cup of a skimmer, you'd spill something on the fan and the fan was destroyed. So we decided that there were enough sales in this that it could justify making a product from the ground up. And I think we're probably the only ones that have truly done this. But we came out with the Aquawind. And what makes the Aquawind special is, besides being low voltage, so it's very safe, it's IP57 rated. So with IP ratings, the first number is dust resistance, 6 is that it's completely sealed against the entry of dust, 5 is that it's very resistant to any entry of dust. And on waterproofing, the scale goes up to 9. IP7 means that it's submersible up to 1 meter for up to 30 minutes. So what this means is you could spill water over the fan, you could drop it briefly in the aquarium, and it will survive. It's a very durable fan, and it is extremely safe, which sets it apart from one of the more common ways of using a desk fan, which if that falls in the aquarium, you're likely to have some potential serious safety issues. Not to mention that it's always possible around saltwater that a bridge of salt will form and conduct the electricity directly into the aquarium without it actually falling in. That can happen anytime you have open motor or wire near water. So we've got our very safe fan. Now in terms of specs, this is something that a lot of people ask me. This fan, it's rated at 99 CFM, but that rating is at 24 volts. We provide the fan with a 12 volt power supply because that keeps it extremely quiet. And in terms of efficiency, you're getting 60 CFM, so you're getting the most efficiency in that manner with a 12 volt power supply. But if you wanted to maximize it, you could add a 24 volt power supply if you had a situation where the noise was unimportant to you. But besides the CFM, there's a fundamental way that fans cool the water is by shearing the water vapor that's formed essentially a cloud on the surface of the water and is preventing further evaporation. So besides sheer movement of air, the angle of the air and the fact that it is cutting that surface layer is what's going to increase the evaporative cooling. Water is, the reason life exists on Earth is hydrogen bonds. Thanks to hydrogen bonds, water has two properties that are very important to insulating the Earth. One is that it expands when it freezes. As a result, we get a layer of ice that insulates water and prevents it from freezing all the way through. And then besides that, water forms a vapor, and that vapor is loosely attracted to the liquid water, and that prevents further evaporation. It forms an insulating barrier. So what we have to do is shear that insulating barrier off the liquid water and then more water can evaporate, and as it does so, it takes away the energy of the water, and that lowers the water temperature. There are limits to this. Essentially without creating a mist or extreme surface agitation, you're generally only going to see a drop of a few degrees. So if you have a very high tank temperature, you're not going to get very far with just fans. You're going to need a chiller. This is meant to take the edge off in a situation where, let's say 3/4 of the year, your tank is at temperature, you're fine. And then, during the summer months, you may be a couple degrees over. Fans will do that. We'll get a little further into this next. I'm going to open the box and show you exactly how this fan works and how to set it up. And then I've got a demo to show you. So here we have the fan, and it's fairly simple. We have our mounting clamps. The mounting clamps do allow us to achieve a degree of angle. It's a fairly small degree. We can have it flat or slightly angled down. We want to have this directed so that we're aiming right across that interface of the water vapor and the liquid water to encourage more evaporation and shear away that insulating water vapor. But something that's critical to this or any fan from working is that we have to have drier air around the aquarium. If you have a canopy, this is not an appropriate solution. What's going to happen is within the canopy, you're going to reach maximum saturation. You're going to get somewhere around 100% relative humidity. There's no more water vapor that can be taken up, and the cooling will stop. So if you have a canopy, this is not going to work for you. Don't waste your money. In a canopy, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to drill a couple of 4-inch holes on either side, put in a couple of box fans, preferably low voltage. Those fans will fail. They generally, over time, if you buy really good fans, you'll probably get a few years. If you don't, you may get a few weeks. But the water vapor that comes through them, and the salt in particular, is going to slowly destroy those fans. But you need to get the humidity out of the canopy for there to be any cooling effect. So drilling the canopy for 4-inch box fans is going to be a far more effective solution than the Aquawind or any other fan you could come up with. Likewise for a sump, if you have a closed-in canopy or a cabinet, that humidity will not be able to escape the cabinet, so it's all for naught. No amount of airflow is going to do anything once that enclosed box reaches 100% humidity. And that's also very hard on any electronics that happen to be in there, any sort of drivers, power supplies, controllers. They're going to be substantially affected by the amount of humidity that's in there, and so I would not do that. You need to have an open top aquarium, and you need to be able to position this to where it blows across the surface. As far as any sort of maintenance or service, this fan is sealed. While you can open it, there's 4 T6 torque screws. There is no user serviceable parts in here. I want to mention that because some of the earlier fans will occasionally start making a squealing or groaning noise. If that happens, contact us. On some of the earlier fans, the sealing rings that cause that create the dust-proof and waterproof environment for the motor will slip down, and they'll be in a position where there's some rubbing. Sometimes that'll even bind the fan, but there's very little hope that would be serviceable, so it just needs to be replaced. They do have a 5-year warranty. The only other part is the power supply. I mainly want to point this out because this power supply does require a very small amount of assembly. For US and European customers, you're going to get 2 power supply tips. US, and this is called a Schuko plug. It's common throughout North and Central Europe. But this is The US power supply tip, once you've found the right one, you simply slide it in there, plug it in, it locks into place. This power supply, again, is these new power supplies we use, they're medical grade. They're designed for maximum safety. They're built to shut themselves down if they're in a wet location and be very safe for our purposes around an aquarium. They also have a very good power regulation and prevent damage to the product. So here we have Aquawind set up on a 20-gallon test tank. We've got the Aquawind and we've got a ultrasonic fogger, which I'm going to use to demonstrate the water vapor and the shearing that we need to get to move that away. It kind of just visualizes what is really happening without the ultrasonic fogger. And I want to show you though that the waterproof nature of this fan and why it's worth the investment. You can drop it in the tank. It doesn't miss a beat. I was able to retrieve it without getting electrocuted. And besides that, you can pour and spill water over it all day long and no harm will come to it. Here we're running the fan on 24 volts. Now, I don't necessarily recommend this. It's noisier. You can see it's considerably noisier, but if you just wanted the absolute maximum performance of one fan and you had or wanted to buy a 24 volt power supply, the fan can handle it. I'm sure that it'll last longer on 12 volts because it's barely being pushed and that maximizes the efficiency. We have very low energy draw. But some people, they have their aquarium in a basement or somewhere where noise doesn't bother them. You could consider doing this. It would give you, 50% more output, a little more than that. But it doesn't quite double it, and it does use more power that way. So we've got our ultrasonic fogger running, and I apologize, it's messy. This is really kind of a toy made for Halloween stuff, and it's tried to come up with a way that I could show people how this cooling effect works and what the water vapor looks like, and this was the best idea I had as far as setting up a visual. So we're going to let this run for a while. You can see this ultrasonic fog is essentially just hovering over the surface of the aquarium. And let's see if I can one hand hold the camera and with the other plug the fan in. So there we go, the fan's on and we get a very fast and efficient dissipation of this vapor, and that's what's going to cool the water. People ask me what size tank would Aquawind cool? Well, I would say one fan will give you a pretty good result on something up to about 75 gallons. If you needed a little less cool down, maybe you could use it on up to a 180. But when you get past that size, and even at that size, you probably would want to use two, and it may be more practical on larger aquariums to consider a chiller. The main goal of this fan was to produce a safe, reliable product. And so it's not, some super turbo fan. It's, a typical desktop fan does a few hundred CFM, but you don't have that level of safety. And, I just really want to emphasize that even if you never dropped a 115 volt fan in the water, you've got exposed metal parts, you've got a motor that has copper windings that are exposed, where the wires connect are exposed. All it takes is a bridge of salt getting into that motor and conducting that water into your aquarium. And not only will the inhabitants suffer, but you potentially risk getting seriously injured if not electrocuted. So to wrap up this video, the Aquawind doesn't have a lot of service need or serviceable parts. A couple of things I want to cover with regards to just taking care of the fan. While it is dust proof and fairly highly waterproof, it is not drop proof. There are seals in there that seal the fan motor so that water can't enter and dust can't enter. And those seals can be dislodged by a hard drop or a heavy impact. So be careful with handling the fan. Additionally, the power connector, that barrel, if that gets wet, especially with salt water, that connection can weld together from the heat that's generated as well as the corrosion, and that can destroy the fan. Those are two issues that would not be covered under warranty, so just avoid those two scenarios. But if you have a fan that through normal use, especially a fan that when they earlier were launched, every now and again we come across one that those seals slip, and just contact me. My email is tunze@sbcglobal.net. We'll get you taken care of. The main thing with this fan is using it in an appropriate application. It's not going to work in a canopy. It's not going to work in a sump in a closed-in cabinet. You need to have an application where it can clamp to the edge of the tank and blow across the surface. An aquarium where the water is well below the edge of the aquarium, or an acrylic tank with a bunch of wide braces, probably is not the best application. And it's not really ideally suited for very large aquariums. Typically, if you get into an aquarium that's much larger, you really probably ought to be exploring a chiller. But for a typical 15 or 10 gallon to 75, 90 gallons, it would definitely do the job if you just need a few degrees pull down. One last thing, I only mention this because I've had it happen. I've had people that have thought, well, I'll maintain the fan by putting some oil on it every now and again. It's a sealed motor. It should never be oiled. The extent of any maintenance should just be rinsing off the blades if there's a lot of dust collection. Likewise for the air intake and exhaust. It is waterproof to a fair degree. So if you wanted to take it to your kitchen sink and use the kitchen sprayer to spray off any dust, you could do that. You can also use the canned air that you would typically use to clean your keyboard or part of the computer. If you wanted to use your garage compressor, you can do that, but I wouldn't exceed 5 psi, maybe 10. If you spin a motor like that very vigorously with a strong air pressure, you will destroy the motor. So you don't want to get carried away. It should just be a gentle dust off. If you wanted to get it really clean, you could gently brush the outside surface. I would probably use like a microfiber cloth or maybe a very soft toothbrush, but you don't want to hit the fan, jar the fan, mess with the blades. Any of that stuff could permanently damage the fan. So thank you for watching today, and I'm always happy to help if you have any questions about our products or need a repair done. Email is tunze@sbcglobal.net. Thank you.